How many times your team decided to start using project management tools but they found them extremely complex, which pushed them to quit and stick to using spreadsheets which are non-scalable? If that's the case, then you are in the right video, because I'm going to show you the exact step-by-step that I use for my clients to manage their projects using Notion only. From process mapping and database building to AI agents. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Awab and I'm a Notion AI expert. I help businesses like yours simplify and automate their system. Now let's dive in. Okay, before we move into Notion and into the building, I have to explain something because lots of people straight away jump into building. First thing you need to do is to map your process. But before that, why do we map our processes? The answer is pretty simple. Your process is not their process. Everyone has their unique way of setting things up. For example, let's say a business, these are the stages that they work with. Like they have a backlog, the sprint, review, release. But in your case, you start with ideation, then you go with scripting, then you record, then you publish. It's the same logic, but different way of setting things up. So this is why I would always recommend to map your own processes. It is fine to get inspired. It's fine to look at other people's, how they structure their system, but just do not copy because it's not going to be fitting inside your business. Now, how do you map your process? I have prepared a set of tasks that you can ask yourself. You can pause this video and read all of these questions. So the first thing is, how many team members do you have? How many departments do you have? How confidential should tasks be? What already runs automatically? Which of those need thinking? So once you answer yourself these questions, all you have to do is put these answers and categorize them into these buckets. So some of the stuff would need like automation, okay? Some of them would need AI. And of course, some of the things just needs to be manual or where you are involved or any other team members gets involved. But the goal is to keep it simple, okay? Now you might be asking, what is the difference in between using automations and AI? So if you go back, this is where I ask these questions. What should be run automatically? And then what needs thinking? So if the automation needs thinking, then I would use AI. If it doesn't need thinking, it's just like an input and an output that is going to be the same always, then an automation is the answer. For example, let's say whenever you change the status into completed, you send a Slack message that says, hey, this task has been completed. It doesn't need thinking because you already have all of the information already in Notion. But let's say instead of sending like completion tasks, you want to have a weekly report that shows you all of the tasks that needs to be completed. And then this one needs thinking and it needs analysis, and it can even give you, let's say you even need like a workload analysis based on the workload that you have currently in your system. Then this needs thinking. So I would use AI or I would use like AI agents. Everything else stays manual. I always recommend to not automate everything. Otherwise, you will lose control over your own system. So try to keep it as simple as possible. So what do you need to build? So right now, since we're going to be building in Notion, I'm going to explain a couple of things before we get started. First thing is the dashboard that we're going to be building. In the dashboard is going to be 2 layers. Or 3 layers. The first layer is the dashboard. This is where you're going to be able to see all of the data, all of your insights, all of the projects, all of the tasks, easy information, easy access, okay? Then second layer is going to be the pages. And within each page, we would have a database, okay? So a projects page is going to have a projects database. A tasks page, there's going to be a tasks database. There's lots of people that organize things separately. They would do a page called databases, and they would have all of the databases inside that page. And then inside the pages, we would directly have the views. I wouldn't recommend that because it might get broken like any time. This is why I always recommend to have the page. This is the way I work. I would always have the page, and then below it, I would have the main database inside of it. So that if you want to manage access to someone, you can easily just share with them the whole page, okay? Now, 6 things you need to learn before we get started. First thing is the properties. Properties is pretty simple. It's basically the information that you gather about each project and each task. Think of them like as the columns. Let's say you have a contacts database The properties that we would need is the name, the phone, the email. These are the properties, the columns, the information, okay? We have formulas. Now this one, it's a whole other story, but think of it as, I'm going to show you the basics, but of course, if you want to learn more, you can either use Notion AI or you can just learn them yourself. You would have automation, and then this is for the data, okay? I would categorize these as data, properties, formulas, automations. Now, we have something else called views. So the views is another way of seeing the database. Let's say we have a projects database, okay? There are some people that would prefer to see it in a Kanban board. There's some other people that are going to prefer to see it in a calendar. There's some other ones that are going to be preferring to see it in a table. These are views. There's only one source of data, but we can change how to see the data without affecting the whole database, okay? So this is what a view is. And then inside a view, we use filters, we use sorting. I'm going to show you the exact examples. Now let's jump into Notion. Okay, now we're inside Notion. So first step is to set up the pages. So what I'm going to do, we said we're going to need page number 1, which is dashboard, then projects, tasks, and I would say meeting notes. Okay, then once you type these in, just hover over your mouse and then click on the 6 dots you see here, and then we're just going to turn them into a page. Once this is done, we need to build the databases inside the projects, tasks, and meeting notes. So I'm just going to go inside the projects. I'm just going to make this as a full page, and then I'm just going to do / always start your databases with tables. Okay, this is like rule number 1. So I'm just going to go with table view database. I'm just going to give it a name. So I'm just going to do projects alpha. So I'm just going to name it projects alpha so I can be able to recognize it afterwards because I have lots of databases inside my workspace. But anyways, this is our database. Now we add our properties, which are the information. So for the projects, we have the project name, yeah, and then I can add, for example, status. In the statuses, these are like the default Notion statuses, and you can add more if you want to. You can rename them if needed. But what I'm going to do is going to add one extra one, which is called on hold, and then give it another color, for example, in yellow. Then what I can do is add a project start date and project end date. It should be like really simple. Then what I'm going to do is add an owner or project manager. I'm just going to call like project manager. And then what I'm going to do is create like a formula, which is going to be empty for now. I'm going to show you what we're going to do with it. I'm just going to call like progress. And this one is going to play as a progress bar based on the completion of the tasks. I just like to give it like a trophy icon, just like that. And then finally, what we can add is departments. So I'm just going to do department, and then using the select option, you can add like more options. So for example, finances, I would do marketing, sales, admin projects. Yeah, something like that. You can add your own departments. This is why it is important to map your own processes. But yeah, so we have these properties. Now, what we're going to do is add the views. So right now, since we have a table, I would always recommend to give it a table. And what I always do is give it like an all name, which means this is where you're going to be able to see all of your projects. I can organize these properties. And then last thing is you can use the table to filter. So I'm just going to add like a placeholders for the filters so that when you're looking for a project, I would always go to this all view and then search for that project. And then everyone done, save for everyone. And then what I'm going to do is add the mostly used feature, which is the Kanban board and a timeline view. So I'm just going to click on, either click on add a view, or you can just duplicate this one. But I'm going to go with add a view, board, and then, yeah, I'm just going to keep it as board. And then what I can do is display the information. So I'm just going to go here and then display. I want to see the department. I want to see the project manager, start date, end date, and I want to see the progress. Now, another thing that I love to see is go into the Notion settings and set up this compact feature. And then I would love to see project manager and department as standalones at the top. I can also add the progress at the very bottom, at the very top, and then start the end date can be next to each other. Now, other thing that I can add is a timeline view, which is this one. Then most importantly is that I go to show timeline by, but before that we click on separate start date and end date so we can separate the start date and end date. And then once we do that, is gonna, if we go to our table and add a project here, project A, then I put on the start date as today, and then an end date as 28th, then the project is gonna be showing me the whole line. So this is why we separate the start date and end date using in the timeline feature. Then same thing, we can add department, etc., etc. There's another feature in the timeline, which is called tables. And here we show a table and next to we show the timeline. And I love that feature. So I'll just go with the table and then I can add department, I can add project manager, and I can add progress. I can just make these smaller so that it don't take too much space. And same thing for the progress. And that's pretty much it. Now we have our database ready. Now what we can add into this page, which is going to be the same structure as other pages, is give it a call out. And then what we can do is go into icons and then give it like an info, or I can give it like an emoji as an info, like whatever you prefer. If you have a brand, then I would go with custom icons using like lots of websites that do custom icons. This depends on how you want to see the information. But for now, I'm just going to go with simple setup. Another thing that I love to do is to hide these comments from the page. So I'm just going to go into the three dots here, customize page, and then just remove the page discussion and the page table. There's no need for those. Okay, now I'm just going to write a welcoming and information about this projects page and get back to you. Okay, so I added a quick use case of the page, but we can add more if you want to. Another thing that we can add is go into like just below this call out, and then we're just going to go with slash button, and then I'm just going to call like new project. And then I'm just going to give it like a plus icon. And this button is going to allow us to add new projects using a button easily. Now it's going to go to do action and then click on add to page. And then we're just going to select like project alpha. And then we're just going to go open page and then page added and select center peak. So this way, when you add the page, it opens up like in a center peak. Now let's give it a test. If I click on new project, that's going to give us this, which is exactly what we want. Now, another thing, as you notice, once you open the page, you might find that information not being 100% like organized. So we can organize them easily. So we can have start and end date here, department, progress, project measure can be at the top, and the status. Now, if you go to this customized layout feature in Notion, it's going to allow you to customize the page even more when it comes to the properties and the placement of the information. What I would do is usually if you click on the heading, you can pin properties. So I'm going to pin the status, and for the progress, I'm going to put it here like as a standalone. I'm going to show you why. And then for the rest of the information, we can just add them as a group. So I'm just going to call this details, and then we're just going to keep it like as grouped. Okay, now what I did is that I added like 4 examples of the projects, as you can see. And then if I go to the timeline, this is how I can see them. Pretty easy. Okay, now next step is to add the tasks database and the meeting notes database, and we would do the same exact logic. So we're just going to go back to our project management page, go to tasks, and then we're just going to have the same layout. And just so I can skip the building for you, for the tasks, I'm going to use like simple properties, which are going to be task name, the assignee, deadline, priority, and then for the meeting notes, it's going to be like the name of the meeting, the type, and then inside of it, we're going to have the meeting AR notes. I'm going to get back to you in a second. All right, so I built the databases for the tasks and meetings. For the tasks, I went with the task ID, the name, the priority, assignee, deadline. And then for the meeting notes, I went with the name of the meeting, the type, attendees, and the date. Now we're going to do the same thing, which is simply add views to the main database. And for the tasks, I'm just going to go first with a Kanban board once again, which is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. And I'm going to do the same exact thing, which is displaying the information that I want to see. I want to see the assignee, I want to see the priority, I want to see the deadline. Probably the ID as well. If it's not needed, then you can keep it. There's no need for the status because we already have the Kanban having the status. And then one of the things that people love to have inside the tasks database is an archive section. And what an archive means is anything that is completed. So I'm just going to do archive, give it a checkbox mark, and then I'm just going to go to filters, status, and then only filter it to only display the tasks that are completed. But let's say we have lots of tasks in here. What needs to be done is whenever something is completed, then it needs to be moving to the archive section. And to do that is also to add a filter here where the status is not done basically. So that when something is completed, for example, let's say I have a task example and I move it into completed, into done, it's going to disappear as you can see, but I can always see it in the archive section. Now, what we can also do once again is just to add another field for on hold when it comes to tasks. We can give it like a yellow color, going to change its placement. And of course, finally, what we can add is a calendar view where it's going to show us all of the tasks in a calendar, which is super useful. And you can also sync this to your Google Calendar or Outlook using a Notion Calendar, which is another app and has its own Notion features. I would suggest to check it out. Then one thing is missing in a task right now, if you notice, is how do we know which type belongs to which project? And this is why we have this relation feature inside Notion where you can sync a database to another one. So for every single task, I want to select the projects that I have in the projects database. And to do that, we need a relation. So you just go into the plus add a property, we add a relation, and then we're just going to look for projects, our projects database. We can rename it. Instead of saying project alpha, it's going to say the project it belongs to. And then one of the most important features is this two-way relation. I would recommend to turn it on. I'm going to show you why. So I'm going to rename it in the projects as tasks so that in the tasks database, I can choose the project, okay? And in the project, I'm going to be able to see the tasks related to that project. And this is really important. So once we have our project, I can make sure to display it inside all of our views if needed, especially the calendar and the Kanban board, so I can know for which project this task is. And yeah, that's pretty much all you need in this page. Now, if I go to my projects database and I open it, as you can see, I can see my relation. But this is not the best way on how to see all of the tasks inside a project. Right now, I'm going to show you a feature that is called database templates, where you can be able to see views and blocks inside a project however you want to. So first step we need to do is go to tasks, and then all I'm going to do is copy the link of this tasks database view, and then I'm going to go back to the projects. Next to new, you have to click on this blue toggle, new template, and then I'm just going to name this new project. So that whenever you make a new project, and afterwards we're going to make this as default, so that whenever we make a new project, we can see the template. So in the template, what we're going to have is, first thing I would recommend to have a block, which is going to be called, I can remove this icon, but I can say, for example, about this project. And you can give it like any color when it comes to the background. I'm going to give it like a heading 4. And of course, I'm going to give it like a bullet point where you can write about this project. Then below it, importantly, is going to be the tasks. So for the tasks, I'm just going to give it like this block. And then I'm just going to paste the link that we should be having from the tasks database, which is this one. And then all I'm going to do is paste the link and then click on link database view. So as you can see, this is going to give us like just like a mirror of the main database, but we don't need all of the tasks. We only need the tasks that belong to this project. And to do that, I'm just going to click on filter. First of all, I want to reset all of the filters, of course. And then we're just going to click on project and then click on project contains new project, so that any task that belongs to that project page that we're inside right now, it should be showing up here inside. Now I can add a line here just to make sure to separate the title from the board. And then I can always make sure that this is full page. I'm going to show you. Now, one last thing that I would recommend you to do is to hide this task relation. And to do that, you just click on the plus in the customized layout section. And then you're simply going to choose the task relation and then advanced convert to relation group. And then once again, you're going to click on it and then click on show as minimal. And this way you can just put it as top. And this way it's going to be like a hidden task relation that doesn't display like all of the tasks they have. But in order to see all the tasks, you need to check inside the project template. This is like really important. Now, since we have our relation with tasks, this is where we should be using the progress formula. Now, when you go inside the progress formula, the progress formula, First thing we need to do is that whenever a task is completed, it should show us the completion percentage based on the total number of tasks. And this is exactly what we're going to be doing. So to do that, I'm just going to go with tasks, and then we're just going to filter only the tasks where the status is done. And then we're just going to give it length so we can calculate how many tasks we have that are completed. And then we're just going to divide. And then I'm just going to just paste this one here, remove the filters so that it gives us all of the tasks. And that's pretty much it. Now, in order to have a 0% like showing up when you don't have any task, we need to add like another logic, which is if tasks are empty, then I want a value of 0. If not, then I need the whole calculation. So we have our progress bar here. Now what we can do, turn this into a bar and then a percentage, and make sure that the decimal numbers is always 2 numbers or 0, so that it doesn't give you like that weird long number. Now, one of the best features that Notion have when it comes to the customized layout is that we can choose if we want this one to be big or small. And for progress bars, I would always go for a big progress bar, just like this one. Now we have our project template ready. And of course we can add like more and more if you want to. It depends on your flow, as I've explained. So let's say I'm going to open this project now and you want to apply this template. All you have to do is click on new project. So for the existing projects, you have to manually change and apply the project template. For new project, it's going to be automatically added, because right now, if you go to the project database and then you set this up as default and you click on new project, the system is directly going to give you the template. But for the existing ones, you have to manually apply that template, if that makes sense. And this is exactly what we did in here. Now, all we have to do is add tasks and relate them to projects. Now, just to show you an example, I'm just going to go into tasks, and then I'm just going to name this task example. I'm going to open it so I can fill out like the information. I'm just going to do the assignee. This is the deadline, for example. The priority is high. And then for the project, I'm just going to choose like the core enterprise outreach campaign. Now, when you open the project and you scroll down, you will be able to see that task because it is related to that specific project. This is like the idea of the whole thing. Now, the other thing that we can do is to add like just an icon into these database pages and templates. I'm just going to go folder, and then I'm just going to set this up here. I'm just going to do the same thing to be set up here. And of course, I'm going to do the same thing for the tasks. And for the tasks, we can do, once again, a template, which is going to be really simple. Once again, I'm just going to go with call out and then about this task. And then we're going to make it like a heading for and a bullet list point. That's all. Then we're just going to put in like an icon here. And then we're just going to go with the title for the template. I'm just going to call it like new task. And most importantly is to make this task as default, so that whenever you make a new task using the button or using the Notion page database, it's going to give you this exact template. And you can do the same thing for priorities, for projects, etc., etc. Now, moving to the last database, which is going to be meeting notes. So for the meetings, there's lots of types of meetings. And for this one, I just have like high, priority, medium, low, but we can change the names into, for example, one time and then recurring. But of course, you can have like lots more if you want to. We have another property here called attendees, where you can select the members that attended that meeting and you have the date, which is pretty simple. Now for the meetings, what I would love to do is, there's no need to use a table, only if needed, but I would directly go with the calendar. Just makes it like really simple, really straightforward. And then one of the things that I would add is a template inside these meetings that are going to be Notion AI Note Taker. So if you go to the template once again, and then I'm just going to go with new meeting as a title. I'm just going to give it like a calendar icon. And then inside, I'm just going to choose the date as today. This is like really important. And you can choose if it's a one time. We're going to be using this template for one time, but we can have another one for recurring meetings, like whatever you prefer. And then we're just going to go with slash and then AI meeting notes. So these are the Notion meeting notes. And basically the idea is that you can sync this to your Notion app. And then whenever you have a meeting, this one is going to be recording all of your transcript. I would recommend you to watch Notion official videos so you can have a better idea about this one. All right, now what I did is that I added a couple of examples, as you can see, using Notion AI, and then we synced them to a couple of Notion projects now to test out that our progress bar is working fine. If I change any task right now into done, then it is going to be able to be displayed here. As you can see right now for this project, we have 2 tasks, one of them is completed, then this should be 50% completion. Now, next step is the dashboard. For the dashboard, the goal here is to display what matters and the data that you only want to see once you open up your Notion dashboard. And for that, we're going to be using, once again, what we call database views. And I'm going to show you all of the possible ways that we can have a good dashboard using Notion gallery views or even tables, and also like using graphs and charts, which are going to be helping us see all of the members' workload, for example, or the project's progress. So first thing we're going to do is that we're going to add like a gallery view of the projects that are in progress. And we're just going to go to the dashboard. And first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a section here called projects. I'm going to give it like a heading 2, a line, and then we're just going to link this database view. We're going to choose the board, but we're going to change it into a gallery, which is exactly the same as a Kanban, just that the Kanban are grouped by the stages. Then once we do that, I would just do card preview to none, which only displays the names here, card size to do large, and we're going to display all of the properties that are needed. For example, the department, the progress, for example, the project manager, start date, end date, and then the status, which is important. Now, once we have this, there's a couple of things that you should consider is that this is a dashboard, which means you're supposed to only see things that matters. And I don't think you want to see the project that are on hold or the project that are not started. So this is why I'm going to call this view in progress, for example, right? And then I'm just going to do a little icon here. That means in progress, filter, and then the status, I'm going to set it up into in progress. So that way I can only see the projects that are in progress. Now, next thing that I can do is tasks. And for the tasks, I'm going to have 2 columns. The first column is going to be for today's tasks. The other column is going to be for overdue tasks. And to do that, once again, I'm just going to go back to the tasks database. I'm just going to grab this all view. And then once you go back to the dashboard, I'm just going to paste the link here. From a table, I always prefer to have the list view, which is cleaner on dashboards. I'm just going to go list. And then once again, I can just hide the database title. There's no need for it. I'm going to rename this into today's tasks. And then I can do, once again, display the properties, for example, the assignee, the priority, the deadline, and the status. And then I'm just going to go filter. Deadline is today. Now, as you can see, none of the tasks are showing up here because there's nothing due today. But if I go back to my tasks database, and I set up like today's date as, for example, for these 3 tasks, and I go back, then I'm going to be able to see them because their deadline is due today. If I change this back into yesterday, then I would only see 2 tasks. Now, in order to set up a overdue view, all I'm going to do is paste this once again, and then I'm just going to do filter. Then I'm just going to delete this filter right here. I'm going to add another filter here for the deadline, and I can like right now, there isn't a really strong way to display like overdue tasks, but what I'm going to do is start date is before today, and I need to add another filter, which is status is not done. So this way it only displays tasks that are already overdue, which means their date is before the deadline, and the status is not completed. So that way we'll only see the things that are pending. So this is why we have our overdue tasks, we have our today's tasks, but what we can here add as well is another view here that is called this week. And I'm just going to put on the filter deadline is relative to today, this week. So we have today's tasks, this week, and overdue. Now, let's say you want to see your team's Now, let's say you want to see your team's workload over time when it comes to the projects and tasks. What we can do is just add another section here called workload. And then we're just going to be using Notion's graphs and charts feature. And let's start off with the projects. I want to see, for example, like how many projects do we have and who are the owners of each task. And to do that, I'm just going to set up like a view once again, go into layout, choose a chart. I'm just going to hide the property here. And then all you have to do is choose the type of the shot that you want to see. But for this one, we can either use the vertical bar or horizontal. I'm just going to go with the vertical one. For the x-axis, which is the data that we have here at the bottom, I'm just going to choose Project Manager. And then as you can see this way, I'm going to be able to see that AWeb, which is me, have 4 projects. But I only want to see the projects that are not completed and that are not on hold. And at the same time, I want to see the stage of each one of these projects. And to do that, I'm just going to go to settings once again, group by, and then I'm just going to choose status option. So this way, I can see that AWeb has 1 project that is not started and 2 projects that are in progress. I'm going to rename this to projects, and I'm going to do the same exact thing, but for tasks. So I'm just going to copy any of the views here like that. And then I'm just gonna remove all the filters that we have so we can start fresh. And then once again, hide the database title, change the settings into short, rename this into tasks. And of course, we need to do the x-axis should be the assignee, and then group by, status option, and of course, only display tasks that are not completed. So this way I can see all of the tasks that are like the task workload per team member, and this way all of them, you can be able to understand like who's workloaded and if you need to reassign your tasks. And of course you can add like more and more graphs and charts based on the databases that we have, which is really simple and straightforward. I'm just gonna give this a short icon, which means this is a dashboard, and that's pretty much it. I'm gonna keep it basic for now, but of course this can be changing depending on the process that you have and the data that you want to see. Now, you don't have to bother yourself with any of that. You can just delegate it to Notion AI. I will leave you a link in the description where you can get a 3 months of Notion business plan, including Notion AI, for free. Now, what I'm going to show you is how to set up automations inside Notion. And for this case, we're just going to go over recurring tasks and recurring meetings for now. And after that, I'm going to show you how we can integrate Notion with external tools such as Slack or Gmail, and of course, how to send notifications to your team member based on the status updates. And finally, I'm going to show you a meeting notes agent that turns meeting notes into actual tasks in the tasks database. So starting off with the tasks, if you go to the tasks database here, and then you go to this little icon that we have here, and then you're just going to click on new template. After that, we're just going to rename this task. And for example, let's say weekly summary. Let's do weekly financial summary, for example. Then you can assign this for the person. I'm just going to go with myself. For the deadline, I would put on today here and then priority high. And there's no need to choose a project. Unless there's a project that is called, for example, annual budget review, then I can do that, but it's not mandatory. Then I can give it like an icon here. I'm just gonna go with a money icon like this one. And then once you set up this task, as you can see, you would notice that it becomes a template. But we need to make this recurrent. And how to do that? You're just gonna click on the 3 dots and then click on duplicate every, or you can just open the actual task template and click on duplicate every once again. And then I'm gonna go with every week, for example, and then every Monday. And then you can choose the starting time. I'm just going to do tomorrow, which means starting from tomorrow it's going to start working and never ending unless there's like a limit to the project's deadline. Let's say the project finishes on December, then in this case I can set up a specific date or a number of runs for that specific task. But for now, I'm just going to keep it like that. What I would recommend is always to put it at 6 a.m. and of course make sure to choose your time zone. Or you can set up like any time you would like to have this task being created. Now you need to understand that these tasks are not tasks that are going to be generated beforehand, but they're going to be generated the day of the task, which means tomorrow, or which means next Monday, I'm going to be able to see this task into my tasks database and not like beforehand. If you want to have tasks showing up in your calendar that are recurring, then you would need to create them manually. All right, so once we have that, I'm just going to go and do the same thing for our meeting notes. Let's say I'm just going to click on new template in the meetings. I'm just going to do weekly meeting review, for example, and then I can choose who are going to be the attendees. In this case, I'm just going to choose my account and then my company's account, for example, and then I'm just going to do the date once again as today, The type, I'm going to set it to recurring. And of course, the duplicate every, I'm just going to do, for example, in this case, in this time, let's do daily, like every day. Or I'm just going to do every week and then choose Monday and then, for example, Friday. Okay. Then same thing, you can just choose the time you want this to be set up, etc., etc. And then, of course, don't forget to have your Notion AI meeting notes, which are going to be beneficial for you to take all of your notes in consideration. Now we can also give this an icon here. I'm just going to give it this icon, for example, and that's pretty much it. Now we have a recurring meeting that's going to be created every Monday and Friday, and all of the team members are going to be tagged once the meeting is created, and the AI meeting notes is going to start taking notes immediately. Now I'm going to show you how to set up an extra automation for the tasks. Let's say whenever a task changes statuses, you want the project manager to be notified about this project. Now, if you go into the projects, if you remember, we have our project manager. And since the projects are going to have like different project managers, for example, we want only the specific project manager to be notified when a task changes the status for that specific project. And to achieve that, we're just going to go to our tasks and then go to automations. I was going to do notify project manager, for example. And then our trigger is going to be status changing. So status is edited. And then I'm going to do an action. And we need to define who the project manager is. And to do that, we're just going to go into define variables. And then I'm just going to do project manager. And then I'm just going to go into this formula. I'm just going to go trigger page, which means this specific task. And then I'm going to search for the project that is assigned to that task that changed the status. And from that project, I'm going to get my project manager. And then I'm just going to do this, choose the project manager. And in order to make sure that this data is correct, you should have the type as list of people. Once you do that, then all I'm going to do is add an action, send notification to, and then you can do specific people. And then once you do that, another thing before you move forward with this formula, I would always recommend to add a flag at the end of the formula. So once you do that, then I'm just going to go into add action, send notification to specific people. And then this is going to be showing up in the project manager section of your Notion automation. So once you do that, this means like overall, this means, hey, once someone changes the status, look for the project manager of that project and send notification to him. Then I'm just going to use Notion formulas to define what is the message that's going to be sent. And for that one, I'm just going to use Notion AI to help me with that. I'm just going to say, make me a notification message that shows the task name and the assignee and to which status it changed to, as well as the deadline. Now, once this is done, Notion AI is going to be making like a formula, which is going to be the message displayed based on the task's data. And whenever we change the status, it's going to be sending us, and I'm going to show you the proof that it works. All right, so Notion set up this formula, and of course you can customize the output however you want to, but let's give it a try. So if I go into this task and we have this project, I am the project manager. If I change this task's status into on hold, then I am supposed to receive in my inbox an update of the Notion. And this is going to be showing up in a moment. As you can see, I can click on view more. It says coordinate IT equipment transfer, who's the assignee, what is the new status, and what is the deadline. And of course, you can also set up a Gmail integration where instead of on top of sending notification to the specific person, you can just send them an email using your Gmail integration, as you can see. And this is really useful if your team doesn't want to use Notion inboxes, or at least use the Notion application phone on the phone where they can receive notification via phone. Automation don't limit itself inside Notion. Now you can use other tools such as Zapier, initn, or make.com that are recommended for connecting Notion to your external tools. All right, now I'm going to show you how to turn your meeting notes into tasks using AI. And to do that, I'm going to show you how to set up a Notion AI agent with custom instructions. So first thing you got to do is that go to your agent section, click on your agent, click on create blank, and then I'm just going to name this meeting notes to tasks. You can name it whatever you want. And then I'm just going to go into the instruction section. I'm just going to paste this quick prompt, turn the meeting notes into actionable tasks in, and then all I'm going to do is tag the tasks database that we have. So I'm going to go with tasks alpha. For each task, write a clear, concise task name, set the priority based on its urgency or importance, set assignee, blah, blah, blah. And then finally, select the correct related project from the project database. And this is only going to be working if the project already exists. And I'm going to show you an example. So I'm just going to do projects alpha. This is our database. So once you set up your instructions, then we need to set up a trigger. And right now, like by default, it's always going to be like when agent is mentioned, which means when you tag the meeting notes to tasks, agent's going to start working. Or I can just add like when meeting notes are summarized, and then I can just choose the meeting alpha. So which means once Notion AI finishes their like the meeting notes summary, then it is going to trigger the agent. But for now, I'm just going to show you when it's tagged because I have already a meeting example that I've set up, and then I'm just going to show you how it works. So once you have your triggers ready, then I'm just going to go into the tools and access section, and then I'm just going to give tasks alpha can edit content, and same thing for project alpha so that Notion AI can have access to these databases. So once this is done, I'm just going to click on save. And before that, let's not forget having like our meeting notes being added, which is going to be this database. I'm just going to make sure that it's the case. Yes, it is the database that we're looking for. And right now, if I go into our project management system and then go to the meetings, I've added this meeting example here, as you can see, where we have the attendees as a web and overflow. This is the date, this is the type, for example, and this is just a quick notes that I've added manually so I can show you how the agent works. Now, once you set up everything before that, make sure to choose the right AI model. So I'm just going to go for that one. I'm just going to go with Sonnet, and there's no need to have a backup model, if that makes sense. So I'm just going to click on save. Now our agent is ready. So let's give it a try. So once you go into your meeting notes, I'm just going to go into the comment section, tag, and then I'm just going to tag the agent that is called meeting notes to tasks. Once I do that, this is going to trigger my AI agent and go through. As you can see, it says meeting notes to task is working. And if I click here, I can see exactly all of the steps that he's going to be making. So I'm just going to read through the meeting notes and create the tasks for us and even assign them to me. So we're just going to wait for it to be completed, and then I'll show you. So as you can see, Notion agent went through the meeting notes, created 4 new tasks, and assigned them to the right project. And if it doesn't find that it should be assigned like to someone, then you can just ask it to assign a certain tasks, or you can just do them manually. But just try to be as specific as possible using your AI agent. And by the way, if you're not careful with the instructions and the chosen model, you might end up with lots of costs. And that's pretty much it. If you want to skip the building, I'll leave you a link in the description where you can get the free Notion template of the project management that we just built. And if you're struggling to set up your Notion system and AI automations, you can get on a free one-on-one call using the link in the description. We only have a few spots left. And I'll see you in the next one.
Hey guys, my name is Matt. I'm one of the co-founders of Dialed Web. We're a full end-to-end digital incubator doing everything from motion graphics to creating some of the most immersive websites in the industry right now. And we've been working with Awab for just over a month now, but we're probably going to continue because of his extreme attention to detail. His team takes on a very tailored approach whenever they begin a project, and they took the time to sit down with us, understand our problems, and in just under 2 weeks, we had an infrastructure that seamlessly slotted in with our workflows and demands. This translated over into being able to spend less time on projects, less manual oversight, and overall, I would really recommend this to anybody who has a wide service offering and have a hard time spending and controlling all of the tasks which are getting done on a day-to-day basis. So if you're feeling skeptical right now, give it a shot, have a consultation, and I'm sure you're going to be surprised with the outcome.
Hey, my name is Michele, and I own JM Solutions and AIC Mentorship. One is an agency and one is a coaching program. We brought in Ayub from Opperflow to help us actually build a Notion system, a complete Notion system for one of our clients, but also build one internally for us specifically. And I have to say the experience was beyond what I was expecting. They go above and beyond for everything. They're very, very detailed and like the extreme attention to detail for everything that they do. And yeah, they've been able to increase our capacity by 2x at least, automate 30% of all our processes, plus do the exact same for our clients as well, which is awesome. So if you're thinking about working with Ayub and the team at Opperflow, don't think twice. They're awesome. They're great. They go above and beyond for you. They exceed expectations. They're fast. They're quick, and they do way more than you even asked them to. So highly recommend them. And to you guys, thank you very much for helping us out and scale the business. And yeah, appreciate it.
What's up guys, Manuel here, co-founder of an e-commerce brand group. We started working with OperaFlow a couple of months ago because we had a vision for Notion to build some systems and processes. Especially the communication at OperaFlow is super professional, so they first try to truly understand what you need before they start building. And everything that we have in place right now makes us able to make decisions faster, fully data driven, and a lot of it is automated. So for anyone considering working with OperaFlow, I would highly recommend.
Hey, my name's Joe from Natty Plus Subs, and we brought on OurAb and OperaFlow to basically give ourselves a platform to manage everything in our business. Since bringing them on, we've scaled well past a 7-figure company, and we were well within the 6 figures when we first started with them. We've basically managed to automate everything we've done from start to finish in the business. Any job that anyone needed to do is now not a job anymore. We've basically hired our key players in each role in each discipline, and now we have Notion agents running everything. Everything is automated start to finish. It's honestly been a godsend having him on. His attention to detail is also crazy, and always like suggesting things I wouldn't have thought of too, which is great. I've got a background in tech. I've done a lot of Notion development myself, but after seeing his profile, I was like, all right, I'll give this guy a shot and see if, he can live up to the standard that it looks like, and he did. So it's been awesome working with OurAb. We will be working with OurAb for a long time to come, and I hope he does the same for you.